everyone. It's a Slaughterland Movie Podcast. I'm Frank, and he's Darren. And we're talking about the things you didn't know about the Halloween franchise. And this is the 40th anniversary coming up this month for the one we're talking about right now. Halloween 3, the Season of the Witch. Let's talk about it because this is a fan favorite now. It's grown on people. Darren, talking about this and reading about this movie in this book, Taking Shape, it's probably the smallest section in this book. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, there's not a lot of meat to it, and it's kind of like the original Halloween. Pretty much everything they shot was used in the movie, and it's sort of the same with this one. Tommy Lee Wallace talks about a couple of moments that were maybe cut out of the film, but I think the kind of interesting part are the differences between what Nigel Neal wrote for the script versus what they actually went for with the shooting script that kind of Tommy Lee Wallace and John Carpenter changed. So Nigel Neal was asked to write the screenplay by John Carpenter. He was busy working on Creature from the Black Lagoon script at that time at Universal, and John Carpenter met with him and asked if he wanted to have a go at writing Halloween 3 with the proviso that they were going a kind of different route. Michael Myers was dead, and they somewhat naively kind of left it that way. So it was interesting that they got this British kind of stuffy screenwriter that was sort of
Why is he a bastard?
I don't know. Well, I think there's kind of he died. No, yeah, he died like kind of 15 years ago. He was an old man then when he died. But a lot of people accused his original script of being kind of really... there was a lot of Irish sort of bigotry in there.
Yes.
Called racism, they were saying. It was kind of ladling it on quite heavy with derogatory words and thoughts on the Irish people. So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to have read this script. There are a number of differences, which I don't know whether they were for the better or for the worse, but certainly Carpenter and Wallace wrote out all the sort of racism that was in there to begin with. They got rid of that straight away. But, there were things like the android henchmen weren't part of it. Stonehenge wasn't part of it. The masks turning kids' heads into mush and snakes and bugs and all that kind of stuff wasn't part of it. And the sort of most important thing to me and you was initially part of it, and that was that Chalice was this kind of womanizing doctor, which you and I absolutely have so much fun with this film when it comes to Dr. Dan Chalice.
And Cochran was a warlock as well.
Yes, he was a warlock, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, if nobody knows who Nigel is, he wrote Quatermass.
Yeah, Quatermass in the Pit, which was kind of like a precursor to, I guess, Doctor Who around when it first came out over here.
Yeah, very popular, right, over there across
it was.
The pond. Yeah. So he has some credibility, and he wasn't also, as we were talking about, he wasn't a fan, of what Tommy and Carpenter were doing to his script and even the notes. He just thought the Halloween was just rubbish. He thought he said, I could write something better than this shit, basically.
I think he kind of he thought he was above everyone else. He was a real, like I said before, a real kind of stuffy upper class twit that was sort of, I think he thought that he could just write this overnight and everybody would love it and it would go on to be huge. And it kind of went to his head that the Americans had gone to him to sort of take on this idea. And he just thought he was bigger and better than everyone and came up with a script that ultimately got pulled apart and rewritten for the better, I think. And so he just didn't take kindly for that. And he spent the rest of his day, he took his name off the credits straight away, even though that meant he didn't earn any money for this. He just got shut of his name off the credits straight away and just said, look, I don't want anything to do with it. And like I say, Carpenter, Tommy Lee Wallace rewrote it. And I think there's around about 60% of the script that remains.
Yeah.
But it does omit a number of things that that I actually thought sounded quite cool. There's one bit in there that really kind of made me laugh when you read about this, and it says in the script, it says Chalice's hospital is described as old, deprived, and dirty.
Like a methadone clinic.
Why? It sounds more like they're describing Chalice than the actual hospital.
Plenty of ass grabbing going around in that because it's all dirty.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that's one of the things that me and you love about this film is how kind of lechy and leery that Tom Atkins is in this film. And
you don't mind him. You don't mind him that way.
You don't mind him. No. But you know, whenever you listen to commentaries and you hear him being interviewed about this stuff, he actually says he had no idea he was being like that on the set here.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
I mean, he was supposed to be a womanizer, but he thought he was kind of downplaying it a little bit, which is. Which maybe he was. I think it's when you look at it with, by today's standards, that it really does stand out that he's kind of can't help himself sort of touching women and slapping asses and making suggestive comments and
I wonder if that hospital had a morgue, and that was one scene we should have seen. Him and his, that, ladies and gentlemen, that wasn't in there. But yeah, there was also going to be a scene where they were going to watch Halloween on the telly, and it was going to be the part where Laurie, Linda, and Annie are walking down the street. Where where you see Michael through the bushes, and there was going to be Annie talking, and Chalice was supposed to say to another person viewing it, "I don't like her. Reminds me too much of my wife." It's the same person. It's her ex-wife playing in the movie.
Excellent. Oh, we've said before that Nancy Loomis in this film, or Nancy Keys as she's known now, is one of the. We're talking about the character now, and not actually Nancy Keys herself.
Terrible wig.
She's horrible in this film. Absolutely horrible. No wonder he left her. He's there. He's bringing all the money in for the family. He's got a hard job as a doctor. Yeah. Exactly. And all she can do is just nag at him all the time. The guy's got...
I think, Darren, every time I see Dr. Chalice, I know this is what I think. Do you remember that scene in Airplane 2 where the kid is talking to his father and they're going off into the moon, and the kid says, "So, Dad, we don't have to worry about getting sued by your former patients?"
That's Chalice, isn't it?
That's Dr. Chalice. Dr. Chalice would have to leave the planet with his family in order to avoid the authorities. But certainly I know what Carpenter and Tommy Wallace would have to go through with Nigel, because I'm practically going through it right now. Also, we forgot to mention Yerwin Yablans said he wanted no part of this. He's like, the backbone of the Halloween franchise is Michael, and because Michael is not in it, he was just like, I don't know, I just don't want to deal with it.
He was happy to pick up the check, though.
Oh yeah. But what would this movie have been like if it was directed by Joe Dante?
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, they offered it to him first, and Joe Dante accepted straight away
with glee.
Yeah, he couldn't wait, and then the project started to drag its heels a little bit, and he wasn't really keen on Nigel Neal's script, and then Joe Dante got a phone call from Spielberg and Landis to take part in Twilight Zone, and so the whole thing just then kind of fell away. He just walked off the project, which I kind of don't blame him. It was, poor old Tommy Lee Wallace, as much as we love the guy, and I think he is quite a talented director, but this did nothing for his career whatsoever. And, look what happened to Joe Dante in that situation. He went on to do Gremlins and God knows also, tons of other stuff after this.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a good move on Dante's part. But
nothing changed with Dan O'Herlihy. I can't even say his last name. How do you pronounce it? Dan O'Herlihy?
The old man.
The old man. What would you have done if we got first introduced to him, Connell Cochran, one of the most villainous people in the world in this movie? If he shook the Dan Chalice's hand and he had a joy buzzer in his hand.
Is that what you call them? A joy buzzer?
Yeah.
Is that the kind of the shock thing that when you
Could you imagine him laughing at it? Ooh, Dr. Chalice.
Because that was going to originally happen, wasn't it? When they met,
because he's supposed to be this toy maker. Because we were known to him as the greatest jokester ever lived. Sticky toilet paper and stuff like that. Some of his, and the way that Buddy Comfort said it in the movie, the actual theatrical cut, ladies and gentlemen, it sounds like some of his jokes could actually kill you in the right circumstances. Sticky toilet paper, weird, it kind of reminds me. Could you imagine Connell Cochran as the Joker, where he gave the guy the handshake and electrocuted him? He's going,
having an old town tonight.
Connell Cochran. But nothing changed much about him. He was still this, but I think they picked the perfect guy by going with Dan.
Because he has some. I think the other thing as well was that Harry Grimbridge spends a lot of the film as a patient in hospital and eventually gets killed off, doesn't he? And Chalice is kind of in the frame for his murder, and that's one of the reasons why he goes on the run, is to kind of try and solve this whole thing with the daughter of the guy he's supposedly murdered.
4 months of rehab, several months of rehab, all to be, killed by a broken glass and wind. And Dr. Chalice being framed for his murder in group.
Yeah. What was the way? How did he die?
Like he was supposed to die from a window breaking and some kind of unnatural force, because Connell Cochran was supposed to send in not the android, but it was supposed to be some kind of mysticism behind it and everything. They were in some kind of therapy session, and glass breaks and wind and curtains go flying around, and he's dead. And then Chalice was the only one in there talking to him, and he got pinned for the murder.
I'd love to know how he kind of got together with Ellie, if he's the main suspect.
I would like to see the ghost. Could you imagine the ghost coming in, killing Cambridge, and Dr. Chalice is like, all right, my hands are going to be busy today. Come on, you ghost. The ghost is just like,
yeah. I mean, so that's one of the main kind of differences. There's no android henchmen. There's no Stonehenge storyline to this with the microchips. There's no children's heads turning into snakes and bugs and God knows what else. And Buddy Kupfer as well in Nigel Neal's script commits suicide. He sees something, doesn't he? I don't know. It does his family. He sees his family get killed, and then eventually he just kind of. He goes to the roof of the factory inside and jumps off in front of Chalice and Cochran.
Cochran says, "Why don't you jump?" We hear his bounce.
Yeah, well, he's a big old guy, wasn't he?
He gets
from Gremlins.
Scene where he jumps off. He just bounces twice. There he goes.
But there's a few kind of. And they pick up on this in the book. There's a few similarities between this movie and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There's also a number of similarities between this and Poltergeist as well. Because the factory's seemingly built on an old graveyard.
Oh, Christ.
And rather than in Poltergeist, you only move the headstones. I believe they kept the bodies, but they used the headstones as the floor of the factory, which is interesting. But yeah, it's. I mean, if you look at the original 1950 whatever, 53, I think was Body Snatchers. Am I right there? Something like that. Yeah, whatever.
Early 50s.
Yeah, in the 1950s version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And the ending to that film, which has Kevin McCarthy screaming, they're coming, they're here, or whatever it is. I can't remember. I'm paraphrasing now. You're next. That's in the van, isn't it? In the when he finds the pods in the van or something. Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of very similar to the ending that we get in this film with Dr. Chalice screaming down the telephone, "Stop it, stop it, stop it," because, you know, he's fearing for not just his own kids, but kind of everybody who's wearing these masks. So it kind of leaves it on a cliffhanger, exactly like the Body Snatchers ending was. But they made no bones about it at all. They said we totally ripped it off. Tommy Lee Wallace, you know, rightfully admits that we wanted it to be like that. We wanted it to be a huge tribute to the Body Snatchers. With hearing about the changes that they made, I mean, Cochran doesn't vaporize at the end, and this is one of the things which would have looked kind of really odd. He doesn't vaporize at the end, but he kind of expands and turns into this kind of huge sort of warlock type version of Cochran, which towers above everybody in the factory.
Like Weird Al's "Just Eat It" video. Of, fat.
Yeah. Or one of the Storms in Big Trouble in Little China, you know, the guy that expands. So, I mean, that kind of, I think they did the right thing with the Stonehenge story. But again, Nigel Neal just hated the fact that they'd gone this route, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does. Look, the whole Stonehenge thing doesn't make sense anyway, because how do you steal that rock and then get it to, where was this movie set?
Santa Mira or something, like around Pasadena, California area.
Yeah. How do you steal Stonehenge or one of the rocks from Stonehenge and get it all the way to the
5
US?
tons.
Yeah.
That's 10,000 pounds.
Exactly.
You wouldn't believe how we got here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way they explained it. You wouldn't believe how we got here, how it got here.
Well, it's kind of like maybe someone gave him lessons.
Yeah.
Quote. Do you know what I mean? It just sort of puts it to bed. You don't need to know, but we got it here. But again, Nigel Neal just hated that, and again, didn't mind telling people as well that he thought it was ridiculous, and that he carried on for years in interviews. He started when the film first came out, and then he just carried on for years.
He was crossed about it, wasn't he?
He was really
crossed.
pissed off about what they'd done.
Move on, Nigel.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact is, you walked away from it. You could have kept your name on it and been paid. Yeah. But he didn't. He had his name removed, and he would forfeit any payment that he was going to get, any royalties. So
that's his own, his own bullshit that he did. It's either his way or the highway. You said he's known for being a curmudgeon anyway. He was this old.
I think
bastard.
so. Yeah. I mean, I know the guy's dead and everything now, but just listening to the way that Tommy Lee Wallace spoke about him in the interview in the Taking Shape book, I mean, there was some pretty, accusing the guy of being racist. I mean, I don't know what extent what lengths he went to with the racism. I've no idea, but for Tommy Lee Wallace to call him out on that, it must have been pretty heavy, and for them to kind of recognize that at a time when people really weren't acknowledging racism back in the early 80s. Yeah, it must have been something pretty bad. I would like to see that script one day just to see exactly what we were going to get.
Well, Darren, maybe the critics. I'm going to read some critics out here. I got 3 that I picked out that explains everything. And so this came out back in the, for ladies and gentlemen who want to read along, that's going to be on page 85 of this book. And this is what some of the critics had to say. And I'm going to save the best one for last. Here's one from Vincent Gamby from the New York Times. Very, very widely known publication, right? New York Times. Mm-hmm. Halloween 3 manages not easily to feat of being anti-children, anti-capitalism, anti-television, and anti-Irish all at the same time. Means to be funny and frequently is. The sets are usually good. Mr. Wallace really has a fondness for the cliches he is parroting, and he does it with style. So it's like you're hitting me and punching me in the face, but you say I'm not bad. Here's another one. Here we go. From Time Out London. Is that still a publication over there?
Yeah,
Time Out London?
It's still going.
Okay. The end result is a bit of a mess, but hugely enjoyable, and often thanks to Dean Cundy's camera work and John Carpenter's close supervision as a producer, as strikingly visually as its predecessors. Not bad.
I kind of, you know, Halloween 3 really does feel like a Halloween film.
It does.
It feels like it's part of that kind of universe.
It's the season.
And it's
it did it perfectly.
It did. And Dean Cundy's photography and everything feels like, you know, the original Halloween and Halloween 2. I do. It does for me. I know it's not canon. It's not part of the timeline, but I still accept it as a Halloween movie.
Yes.
I know a lot of people can't accept it as a Halloween movie.
There's masks.
I do. And I get a kind of maskless Michael Myers feeling from this whenever I watch, which you do get in Dick Warlock. But those guys, the androids, do to me feel like a maskless Michael Myers. Sure. The way that they walk around, the way that they move. There's a scene early on in the film where I think it's Harry Grimbridge that he's attacking in between the car, isn't it? And the car kind of crushes him. And there's a number of moments in this film where, and especially the score, which is just fantastic and one of the best scores in the entire franchise. It does feel like a Halloween movie to me, and I do accept it as part of the franchise.
So much, before I get to the last one, so much that people are always debating whether or not Michael's mask is part of Silver Shamrock. People cannot help but interlope those movies. That's how much they want it to be part of the universe. But the last one here is the best, Darren.
Okay,
from Roger Ebert from the Chicago Sun-Times. There's a lot of problems with Halloween 3, but the most basic one is that I've never figured out what the villain wanted to accomplish if he got his way. A low-rent thriller for the first frame. The one saving grace is Halloween 3 is Stacey Nelkin, who plays the heroine. She has one of the richest voices that makes you wish she had more to say and in a better role. He wrote that while his hand was down his pants, didn't he?
That's Roger Ebert that wrote that?
That's Roger Ebert. The best thing I like is Stacey Nelkin.
Fantastic.
Well, good old Roger. God bless him.
Yeah.
As he's, fondling himself as he wrote that. I want her. I want to be Dr. Chalice. Yeah, imagine Roger Ebert, dribbling over Stacey Nelkin.
What about Chalice getting kidnapped? There's a couple of bits in this film. There's a scene where Chalice is kidnapped and encased in a cocoon, which is the sort of
Wicker Man.
yeah, which is kind of like the midway point. Is it what they use to kind of
suck the energy out of you? They use it to slowly kill you. Could you imagine seeing Chalice in a wicker basket naked?
There's also a scene where when Chalice is kidnapped, he's then taken to Cochrane's house, which you don't get in the film. His estate, yeah, and so all of those great speeches that Dan O'Herlihy has about you know nothing about Halloween and all this kind of stuff, all happen within his house, and then they go back to the factory.
Yeah.
After that, and that would have been interesting to see, just to kind of have a taste of what at home with the Cochranes is like.
Oh, God. Flaming pies. Don't step there. That's a bomb there, Dr. Chalice. It's for people and trick-or-treaters. Because he has an entryway that says caution landmines, for the children.
Yeah.
Those who come to my house get candy. Jesus. But he's actually the only one throughout the whole series, franchise, including Halloween, of course, that says Sam Hain right.
Yes, but it wasn't Nigel Neal didn't write it that way. Initially in his script, he had I think it was Ellie's Harry Grimbridge was calling himself Sam Hain, right?
You only say Sam Hain, and that's what the driver thought who found him was his name, Sam Hain. But Cochran, in that beautiful monologue, says it correctly. Yeah.
So the whole of the movie, Harry Grimbridge's character was going to be called Sam Hain or Samuel Hain. Oh, and Christ. It's something that was completely overlooked. Even in Halloween 2, they call it Sam Hain as well, which we all know now is Sarwain. So the whole thing of him being called Sam Hain and calling himself that, or the guy that found him calling him that, and checking into the hospital under the name of Sam Hain, just made no sense whatsoever.
No.
Thank God that they didn't go through with that. But it does make a slight, knowing how to pronounce that name now, does kind of make a slight mockery of Halloween 2.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean you never knew how to pronounce it? You being so close to,
Well, I do now. I because obviously after seeing Halloween 3, I know how you actually pronounce it.
No Irish friends there, Darren?
Somebody at some point between making Halloween 2 and Halloween 3 cottoned on to the fact that actually we've got this wrong.
That's the first start of racism, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Not knowing how to pronounce an actual name. But this movie, ladies and gentlemen, every time Tommy Lee Wallace says he goes to conventions or signings, he says everyone comes up to him and says Halloween 3 is one of their favorite movies and has really grown onto him. And he's actually so appreciative over that. And when other people ask him, what do I say to my friends and family who don't like it? It's not part of Michael's universe. And he just goes, don't deal with it. Just move on.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's a good movie. And I think what happens is, has caught on. People have grown up from the 80s being kids. Because let's be honest, we wanted Michael all the time.
Yeah.
And we didn't get Michael here. Well, figuratively. But I love this movie. I love it.
I do as well. I do. I think there's lots of fun to be had by it. I think it's a creepy little Halloween movie. I think that Atkins is it's one of his best roles, even though he's a little bit, as you say, handsy throughout it. But that kind of adds to the humor in there, because we had a lot of fun doing our audio podcast on this film. The second thing we ever did, ladies and gentlemen, and almost the last thing we ever did. You can check that out on any podcast platform. But we had a lot of fun with it, and it took us 2 attempts to record it because it seriously went wrong on the first attempt, and we kind of didn't hide away from that either. It's all there on the podcast, exactly what went wrong. I think you'll have fun with it if you listen to it. But yeah, it's something that I've really grown to love over the years. I know when I first heard about this film, I could never get my head around it. The fact that Michael Myers is not in this at all. And also the poster. I remember the poster, which had this kind of sign on there, a big kind of star that said "All New." Which Tommy Lee Wallace actually jokes about now and says that they really screwed up the marketing on this film, and that all new is like something you put on a new washing detergent or something, not a movie. So it really did confuse people when it first came out, and I think when I first saw it I wasn't that keen. It's one of those movies that I've kind of grown to love over the years, and kind of again, it's one of those. It has Carpenter's stamp on it, just because of the alum that are in there. There are bits of it that remind me of The Fog. There are bits of it that remind me of the Halloween films. It's obviously Dean Cundy's work, I think, and the locations that they use as well, which are all kind of interwoven throughout those films. There are bits of the locations in Halloween 2 that are used in Halloween 3. Particularly your favorite moment when he's on the phone to his ex-wife.
Linda, Linda.
Oh, not that scene. No, I want about
that
when
one
he's
too?
when he's bought the six pack.
Oh, the 6-pack. And he's like, yeah, tell the kids I'm not coming. Yeah, next week. I got to go. I got this hot piece of ass waiting for me in the car. She's driving. She's paying for all the gas. And I'm going to get in there. I'm going to get this stash all dirty. You know, maybe leave a little bit of fermenting on there for the kids to smell. You know, I got to go, Linda. I got to go. See you later. Yeah. I love you too. Goodbye. We could use all that in this recording, can't we? Yeah, I gotta go. Yeah, Linda. Yeah. Shut up. Tell your ex-wife to shut up. Actually, most couples now are actually more civil when they have kids involved in at least their relationship is ended, but you know, they get along with the kids. But you don't tell your ex-wife to shut up. Shut up. 6-pack.
He doesn't care at all.
No, he doesn't.
In that scene, he just doesn't care. He's like kind of, you know, she's shouting at him. All he's bothered about is the beer and this journey he's going on. And that's just evident. As soon as he slams the phone down, he sprints to the car, doesn't he?
Yeah, he doesn't. He looks across the street. That's about it. He runs in his corduroys and he's all fun and he's all ready to get laid. Would you have loved as they're traveling to Saint Amir that he throws a beer can out the window that you're counting how many beer cans are left? Oh, there's one. Oh, there's two. Oh, he's saving 3 of them for the hotel. Ooh. Darren, in all seriousness, would you have liked to see a sequel?
Yes. And I'll be delighted if they do something with this next. You know, I think it's highly unlikely that they're going to do something with this film as part of whoever gets the rights for Halloween. Yeah. I'd love to see them do something with it as a TV show, maybe a good 6 episodes or something like that. There's no point in bringing Atkins back. I think that would be the disappointing thing, was that the tone of the movie, which I love, would seriously change. And that's just the way that male characters were portrayed back then. And I have a lot of fun with this movie, just kind of laughing at how things used to be. You know, I'm not saying that what they did was right. I'm just saying that it just tickles me to watch it. That Jesus, they did that back then. All that would be gone, I think, with a remake or a sequel. It would be a completely different tone, which bothers me.
Picture this: the opening to Halloween 3, the Halloween Season of the Witch Part 2. The factory started again. It's opening. It's like Willy Wonka. It starts again. Because no one knows the proof that it was the masks that were killing children.
Yeah.
There was no proof of it. Dr. Chalice is locked up. He went funny. He went crazy. Tom Atkins is there. Tom Atkins, we see him. The opening shot is a reporter coming in saying, "I'd like to talk to Dr. Chalice." It's like, okay. And they're explaining what happened and everything. Kind of like Halloween 4 with a security guard. Door opens up. And there he is, sucking face with a nurse in his rubber room. And then doctor comes in and says, "Doctor, you have a visitor." "All right, send him in. See you later, Gladys." And puts him back in the straitjacket. You got to be careful with Dr. Chalice here. We call him the hands. He always gets out of that restraints to grab something.
Oh, that would be something, wouldn't it?
Just have him back for the episode. You know, kind of like
you could do
in Mouth of Madness when he came out.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry about the balls.
No, I think, you know, I'd like to see them do something with it. I think rather than a continuation, I'd prefer them to redo it again, because a continuation would be, I don't know. It's a different time now, and the two kind of eras for me would sort of jar. Having said that, they did it with Halloween and H18, so
you made me think of something. Instead of masks, how about exploding candy?
Could be anything like that. What, little microchips in the candy?
Not even microchips. You know, just like We're getting too much into Willy Wonka, aren't we, here with exploding candy? They could do it. They could do it. It's easily, that could be done. You just got to get the right story. You got to bring back Tom Atkins. And I would be very, 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 very happy if they brought Stacy back.
Well, you're going to bring back Atkins? He's like 80. What is he? 84? 80?
He's in a rubber room, for Christ's sakes, Darren. You can bring him back.
Oh, I see what you mean in that way. Okay.
Yeah, you're not going to have him run and slap ass down the hallways all the time. Your Honor, we got away with this in the 80s. I don't know what the big deal is. and Stacy, and Nancy Keys is his the opponent, his witness. See, she stood up. She put up with it. Oh, all right, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've covered what was going to be and what didn't happen in Halloween 3. The things you didn't know about. Darren, any closing thoughts?
Just that I adore this film now. I want to know more about it, and perhaps we'll revisit it again when Tommy Lee Wallace's book comes out. I can't see that it's coming out anytime soon. I think it was due to come out this Halloween, but he's written a book on the making of this film. So I'm really kind of excited to read that. So maybe we'll look at it again when that book comes out. Get some more info on it. Yeah.
And if it's anything like taking shape, anything involving the Halloween universe, ladies and gentlemen, especially this book, Taking Shape, it's a quick read if you're into the material, which Darren and I absolutely are into, of course. You just keep going and trying to read, and then you realize that when you started at 1:00 in the afternoon, it's now night.
Exactly.
You got to pace yourself. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, as always, stick to the roads.
And the best of luck.
We'll see you soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Happy Halloween.